Hey, what's going on, everyone? You are now listening to Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. Computer. Hello, everyone. This is Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. And our guest today is Amber Myren.
Yes.
Perfect. Amber is an organization coach, speaker, and tutor. Amber, thank you for spending some time with us today. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here and talk about resilience. I think it's such an important topic. And as a teacher, I just feel like this is something that, in this past year has been so important for so many adults and kids. So I'm really excited to kind of talk about that subject with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Um, Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm still in Maryland and I grew up in Maryland. I lived in and attended high school in one of the most diverse cities in the entire country. And so I got to see the beauty of diversity since I was really, really young. And then also the other side to kind of what marginalized groups had to experience. And so that really brought me into my teaching career because I was really interested in, how did we get here? Why is there so much injustice? In what way can I bring something to the table to fight against this injustice? And so I became a social studies teacher for high school students, teaching US history, which is just full of injustices
Mm-hmm.
and also beautiful stories of resilience and things like that. So that's kind of what got me started. And then recently, I've just kind of been expanding um, who I reach by looking into, who else can I tutor or who else can I talk to about organizational skills and just kind of who can I show my empathy towards to help them get where they want to go. Because I've had struggles too, and so I think it almost makes you more empathetic when you do go through those types of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't feel like you have to necessarily struggle, but not it helps because that sounds so bad, but it's almost a different level of appreciation um for the situation, for whatever it is that you or the person are they're going through. um so it's kind of cool. So you were a social studies teacher
Yes,
in high school.
absolutely.
How is that
Luckily,
experience?
yes. So I am a very cliche teacher in the fact that I think it's the best job in the world. And I like wake up and I love my students way too much and all of that. And so what's been really interesting lately is the attack really on teaching real history.
Hmm.
And that's been tough in other counties. Again, I'm lucky to still be working in a county that's extremely diverse and actually cares about teaching the truth of what happened in their country. And that's been a passion of mine since I was in high school. So my lessons have always reflected the reality, and kids have been thankful for that. They see their own identity reflected in the curriculum. They learn, maybe why is this bad situation happening? Why is racism or homophobia or sexism continuing? Where did it come from? That kind of thing. But then, as a member of America, I'm sad to see what happens in some other counties and some other states where they really want to attack social studies teachers, which I think is so silly, but it makes sense in their grand plan to kind of like, erase these topics and pretend they didn't happen. They're going to have to go to the people who know that they happened,
Yeah.
right? And make them stop teaching it. And so I feel very lucky to be in a place where it's continually taught, but I definitely feel like scared for students who are in other places and who are going to get a whitewashed history or an completely inaccurate history of our country.
Mhm. Yeah. I'll never forget. like the moment I realized like the truth behind Christopher Columbus. That's one of the things that it never, like growing up, and what I was taught was that he was like this great person who came and discovered America, and later only to realize that that was not the case. It's kind of like we are trying to immortalize and glorify these really, really unworthy individuals.
Absolutely.
I was very, very careful about how I worded that.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I believe in my classroom when there are individuals that I don't want to glorify any individual in my classroom, to be honest. In my opinion, it's kind of like, let's look at their actions and then you decide. But let's look at all of their actions and let's look at the truth of their actions. And that's really exciting to me, because then kids aren't like, the media wants to say social studies teachers are like brainwashing the kids with correct information. Anyway, when I'm in my classroom, kids say like, no, you let us come to our own conclusion. Like, you give us all the information about a person or a situation, and then you let us decide, how do we feel? And I love when the kids share their opinions. And, when you give them the real facts, they come to the right conclusions of, this was a genocide and this was a, huge problem. And, this person has been glorified for a long time, but honestly, they don't deserve that glorification. Actually, here's the truth behind them. And so I find that really exciting to get to see in my students, because again, it's not me kind of teaching it to them, it's them putting it together on their own. And then they get to be the people who teach that to other people in the future, right? Maybe someone older than them is going to say, oh no, Christopher Columbus was the guy, he was so cool, and they get to be the one who kind of says like, well, here's some more information I've learned about him that might, change your mind. And so it's really exciting to think like, okay, these young people get to go out and they might actually get to change other people's mind too. And so like seeing the way that that can reach out.
I'm glad you brought up the, here's some new information that might change your mind. Because I think as a society, we are like dead set on what we know, and there's no space and room for growth or new information. What is your take on that?
Absolutely. I think there are so many people who it's very hard for them to change their mind. I find that young people, it's not as hard because they are more open. But at the same time, I have family members who believe lies they read on Facebook and things like that. And I've actually talked to them. And what I've realized is like, I have to be humble among them, right? Like if I come at them full force, anger, like anger is justified in so many different ways in America right now. But I know that if I want to change someone's mind, I have to come from it from a place of, let me listen to what you think, and then let me present information and say, it's not your fault that you misunderstood this topic, or it's not your fault that you watched this news show and got incorrect information, right? Because I want them so much to not hold on to their bad beliefs just because of their ego, right? And I think that almost always is part of it, is if they reject what they've been taught growing up, or if they reject what they know now to be their truth, then they feel like, oh, well, then I'm stupid and I don't want to be stupid. And so I really try to just come at it very gently of saying, well, I'm an educator. I studied US history. I study, racism. And I know a bit more about this. And if you're interested, I'd love to tell you a bit more about this. And so I think just coming at them humbly, I did that with my aunt once, and she said she really appreciated it. And I was like, I have no idea if I've changed her mind on anything, but like, this is all I can do. I mean, I can obviously do more in like protests and things like that. But I'm saying like in a one-to-one conversation, I especially think as like a white ally, like that's kind of my job, is that I need to be out there trying to get people to understand the truth of the injustices that so many Americans are facing. And so I think that my method can be hard for some people, right? Because they are so angry and they're so upset.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've learned how to like put the anger in the back of my mind so that I can try to achieve what I want.
That's a skill.
Yes.
That's a skill. And I'm sure have you always been like that? Is that something that you had like to practice?
I actually feel like I've been like that for a while because I think I practice so much with students. With students, I never feel angry at them for their opinions or anything like that. And I just have so much empathy towards them. And I've never had like anger really in the classroom. I've always been like, you know what? They're not going to learn from me getting upset. They're only going to learn from me being calm, and they're only going to respect me if I'm calm, right? Because the stereotype is like, if a woman, women are emotional and this and that. And so if we express our anger, I know there's other stereotypes as well, like in other marginalized groups of like, if you express your upset or your anger, then you're just crazy and like you're not thinking straight or whatever. And I think it's completely valid to be upset and to share your emotions and, be angry. I just figured out for myself, I was like, what can I do to make a difference? I think I have the ability to be calm in these situations because I'm surrounded by 125 crazy high school kids every day. So I'm used to life throwing anything at me. And so I was just so passionate about teaching other people. And I was kind of used to it too, because, as a white person, when I would go to like for college, for example, it was much more white than where I grew up. And people would say things to me that were racist, but they thought I would be like on their team. And so I
yes.
learned.
Talk about that.
Yes. So I remember my high school was 10% white. And so I was able to learn so much from other people that pretty much everyone who left my high school is like a social justice advocate. It's absolutely wild. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But so I go to college and I'm like, oh, wait, now it's like so many white people and they didn't come from my high school. They come from different backgrounds. And so I remember like someone saying something to me about like people of color in their school. I don't even remember what they were saying, something just inappropriate. And I was like, no, I don't agree with that at all. And I think that's really where I found out, like, I can sit and be silent and basically perpetuate the problems, or I can absolutely just say calmly, no, I don't think that's right. And let me explain to you why it's not right. And so I've been having to do that for so long, I think with my own family members, with people in college. And now, I mean, I think it really is impossible to change people's minds, certain people's minds. But I have to have hope that some people's minds can be changed. I have to have that hope so that I can like continue going every day. And I also think it is my responsibility too, to teach those things to others, or I'm just part of the problem.
Absolutely. I'm glad this whole conversation is full of spice. I love it. I'm glad you brought up like being surrounded by like your white counterparts and them saying something that definitely did not sit right with you, was inappropriate, and you addressed it.
Yes.
How uncomfortable was that addressing it to them?
To them, right? Because I was going to say, it's crazy. For me, it's not uncomfortable because basically I spent, years hearing stories of racism, seeing racism firsthand, and like learning how to be a better ally from all of my friends. And so for me, I was like, I'm not uncomfortable, but you're right. The other person is kind of like, they definitely take a step back. They're like, wait, this white person isn't racist too? Hold up.
Like now I can't trust you.
Yeah. And so to me, I was kind of like, well, I want to try to keep this relationship if I can, so I can educate this person. But at the same time, every time they say something, I'm going to call them out on it. And it's not me trying to, you know, shame them or this and that. It's just me trying to really teach them and say, like, you know, you're like 18, 19 years old and you have this belief because you were taught that belief, but you don't have to hold on to that belief, right? You can throw that belief away and, you know, move forward. And so with this particular, you know, like roommate in college, I'm not exactly sure how much progress was made, but I think hopefully maybe her feeling uncomfortable is an impetus to learn and to grow and to change. You know, if you can feel uncomfortable and then use that in a humble way to move forward, that's way better than, you know, what happens with, I think, a lot of people, which is, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, you go on the defensive.
Yeah, absolutely. It is 110%. And so it's so very important to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
Because that's the sweet spot where a lot of growth happens. And without that, if you don't feel uncomfortable, I feel like personally, your mind isn't open, you're not expanding, or at least those wheels aren't turning. There's no oil in there, like it's nothing. If you don't feel uncomfortable, I feel like if you feel a certain way or some type of way, that means that something's resonating, something's clicking, and maybe you're not at a spot where you can acknowledge it or you feel like you can. So you, of course, you get defensive. But the fact that you feel some type of way, you know, I got you there. I'm hoping, like you said, I'm hoping that there's progress that can be made there.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's better than them not getting uncomfortable. Like you said, it's better than them living around only other people who believe their problematic beliefs, right? And just having that fed over and over again. And then also being able to say, like, well, you're my friend, right? Like, you trust me, don't you? Okay, well, then maybe you can listen to what I have to say. And so I think, like, building relationships, you know, with my students or with other people, adults that I'm talking to, and like making them know, like, I care about you as a person. I'm not trying to get you, you know, I'm trying to help you change your mind. And I kind of do an exercise like this with my students, because I'll ask them a question and then have them share their opinion, but I won't give them any information first. So it's all based on what they already know. So maybe it's like, you know, do you think this historical event was good or bad, something like that. And then I give them all the information. And at the end I say, did you change your mind? You didn't have to change your mind, but were you open to changing your mind about your opinion based on new information being presented? Because if you weren't open to that, then you probably didn't write a great paragraph anyway, because you didn't use data and stuff like that. But to me, I just keep trying to be like, the open-mindedness is what's important. Like, if you leave this classroom and you don't remember every aspect of history, which obviously you will not remember because our school system is crazy and you have 7 classes a day. But if you can say, you know what, I have to learn how to trust only reliable sources, and I have to learn that I can have a belief and I can change that belief given new information. And I can be humble about that, right? And say, like, you know what, I used to think this and that was terrible, but I don't think that way anymore. And I'm thankful to other people who educated me and blah, blah, blah. Because I mean, I think all of us at some point do something wrong anyway, and then we learn from it and we apologize. And so it's just me holding on to that hope that some people with these, you know, really limiting beliefs and the beliefs that lead to laws that are unjust, etc., you know, can put that ego aside.
Yeah, ego can definitely get in the way of progress, because your ego is comforting, you know, and like we said, stepping outside of that comfort zone, it's unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. And I think for a lot of people, it's easier to not go against the grain. It's easier. So, okay. Social studies teacher, um, organization coach. Like, so I love organization.
Mhm.
Are you meaning like literal organization, like compartment, or like an organization as in like a group of people?
I mean organization as in like, how do you organize your day or your week? How do you organize your assignments, your work assignments or your school assignments? How do you organize your papers? Right? Because as a teacher, it's like a kid might shove a paper to the bottom of their backpack, and that's their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And for adults, I think it's, what is your version of that? What is your version of kind of not being organized? And it's much deeper than just saying, okay, all of us have some organizational issues or we can't be on top of everything. It's about kind of like, well, what keeps you from doing certain things, right? What
Mm-hmm.
makes you put off certain things, or what makes you procrastinate? Why do you think you do those things? Is there something that you don't like to do? How can we reframe that and make it easier? Or maybe it's you're extremely overwhelmed by an assignment or a task at work, and you look at it and you're like, this can't be done, right? Maybe you're a perfectionist who feels like, I'm not going to be able to do this perfectly, so I don't want to do it at all. And so that anxiety kind of
Mm.
contributes. And so I love getting to the root of kind of like, well, where's your organizational issues? Like, what are you feeling like you're not accomplishing, or what do you feel like you don't have time in your day for? But coming, to it through my own empathy of saying like, we all have things that are limiting us. Like for me, I definitely dealt with perfectionism, and it didn't mean I was perfect, right? It meant I was aiming for perfection, and that when I didn't reach it, I would feel bad about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so with other, clients, it's so exciting to just be kind of like, well, where do you think this comes from? And then there's so many tools like, okay, well, if you're procrastinating because you're overwhelmed, then let's break down this task. And I do a
Mm-hmm.
funny example of like, how would you break down making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Like, okay, first you got to get the bread. Okay, then you got to put this. Da, da, da. And I said, well, when you break it down into a list of things to do, you don't have to do, well, if you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you better make the whole thing at one time. But if you're writing an essay, or you are, writing up a proposal or something like that, then that you don't have to do this in one day, right? There's so many people who are like, I work well under stress, I'll do it the night before. And I'm just kind of like, no, let's break it down. You can do this part of the assignment today, and then hopefully that stress and that overwhelm actually goes down for you, because
Mm-hmm.
I found that that's a big issue for most people. And that's something that a lot of people, adults and students, suffer from, is just this feeling of overwhelm when they
Yeah.
get a big assignment, right? If it's something that is kind of not clear how to break it down, I love getting to sit there and say, like, let's break it down. And then also, let's make sure that you have time in your day where you're not working.
Mm-hmm. How important is that?
That is 100% the most important thing, right? I mean, if you are not taking care of yourself, then nothing's worth it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nothing's worth it. And I've seen that, I've gone through mental health problems myself. And, I would say like, oh, well, I don't have time to, go to therapy or something, like, oh, I don't have money to go to therapy. And then, which is a reality for a lot of people as well. In my case, I feel like I did have enough, but regardless, I was realizing, okay, so I'm putting work above my mental health. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is crazy. And also, I really think I'm going to perform my best when I'm stressed beyond belief and
Yeah.
I'm have other things in my life that are distracting me. And so, when I give them a daily calendar or a weekly calendar or have them map out their month, whatever works for them, I'm like, you need to actually place in it what is going to bring you happiness and
Mm-hmm.
what is going to recharge you. And that's different for everyone, and I think that's what's really exciting is I can share my thoughts on, this is what recharges me, right? I do not meditate, but if that's something you want to do to recharge you, put that in the calendar, place
Mm-hmm.
that somewhere. If you're more the type of person who you just need to call a friend and that's your connection, and that's what's going to help you with your day. That's kind of more where I am, right? I would want to call a friend or call my sister and just like talk on the phone. And that's recharging for me. And I think sometimes people feel ashamed of having to take breaks as they think of it, but you're not really taking a break. You're recharging yourself and you're taking care of yourself. And doing good work is part of taking care of your life, but it's only one part of taking care of your life.
Mhm.
And so I, I love getting to hear kind of what they view as, this is something that brings me joy. And
Yeah.
so I often have them write out, a couple different categories, like what's something you could watch that would just bring you joy,
Mhm.
right? For me, it's like music videos, right? I can watch a music video and I'm good. Like I'm so at peace, and for other people, they're like, oh, well, I love scary movies. And I'm like, that's not me, but I'm glad that's for you. Like, I'm scared to death of scary movies. I'm a wimp. But if that's for you, write it down, and then you come back to this. Because sometimes I think you're so overwhelmed, you don't even know what brings you joy.
Because we're hey y'all, listen, it is time for some action. If you are enjoying the content that you've been listening to, I need you to rate and review. That's it, that's all. Make sure you go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and rate and review it for us. We appreciate you so much. Let's get back to some resilience. Lost in the sauce, especially
Absolutely.
I mean, growing up and in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, that workaholic was like the thing, like work. I could sleep when I died. Like I just gotta work. And it wasn't until the past, I'd say maybe the past like 5 years that conversation is really shifting. And hey, yes, work is important. You need to be able to provide for yourself and, make sure you have food and the basic necessities. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't show up for anyone. Like, and I fully believe that. Like, even parents who are like, well, my kids. And I'm like, if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot show up fully, because what's going to happen is, not what's going to happen, but what could happen is, something happens at school, or there's something happens and now your temper is so short and now you blow up, and all because you're stressed because you're not taking care of yourself. I have a thing, it's called audit your orbit. It's like one of the methods in my value method. And the most important piece in that whole orbit is you, and you're right in the middle. You gotta take care of you 110%. Because if you don't, you'll spiral. I've been there,
I think that's such a great message, because I've been there too. And it's not like I've always been like, oh, self-care is great. You're totally right.
Exactly.
It's more of a recent thing. And I'm just so thankful that it's coming to be, because I think society taught me and a lot of my friends, exactly like you said, you can sleep when you're dead, work, do everything you possibly can to achieve and get status and get money and this and that. Not that I really went that route, because I'm a teacher, but still I was like, I want to be the best teacher, and I need to be, I need to work overtime. In my first year teaching, I would work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. When would I be taking care of myself? So of course I was like going a bit unhinged that year.
A bit unhinged.
I'm trying to think of the right word for that. But back then I feel like self-care wasn't really talked about. This was like 5 years ago. And so I really just thought like, well, no, this is your job as a human being, is to work really, really hard. And then, only within the past year, really, I've been able to say, wait, if I don't take care of my physical health too, I'm going to be a complete mess, and I won't have a job, and I won't get to do the things I want in my life. And so I have to like practice what I preach. And on my calendars, I'm writing in, go to the pool for an hour, or, go to this Italian ice place that you love and go get like a fancy dessert or whatever. Those are the things for me. But it's really, exciting to see so many other people opening up to that idea, because it just reinforces it for me. It helps me remember again and again, this is more important. This is more important. Take care of yourself, and then you can help all the people you want to help. Right?
Absolutely. I believe, and I will stand by this until my last breath, and even past that, there needs to be a certain amount of mental health days that one can take if you're working, not even if, like you're working, you're at work, you work for an employer, whatever that is, you should get 1 or 2 mental health days. Now, granted, you might need more, you might need less, whatever the case may be. But the fact that it is still kind of frowned upon for someone to call out because they're not feeling good up here.
Yeah.
That's why that's what leads to burnout. That's what leads to those situations where you are feeling a little unhinged, because you don't have that. We don't have that support from our employers, from our, people who we are working and bringing in money and, revenue for you. And you don't care that I am not feeling too happy right now with myself.
Right. It's crazy to think employers wouldn't understand that we're human beings and that all of us are going to have mental health issues at some point. I mean, granted, it'll be different for each person, but, even at my job, last year I got diagnosed with POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And so I was really dizzy. I was really lightheaded. And actually, I didn't have the diagnosis until 3 months into being bedridden.
Wow.
So I didn't know what was going on with me. So I'm just in bed, not able to do anything. And of course, my mental health went down the drain. And I did not feel comfortable telling the people at my job, like, I'm sick, but I'm also like, my mental health is really terrible right now because I'm going through this big life change of, having this new illness and this, I don't feel that there's enough support in the workplace of saying, like, it's okay to share these things. Like, you don't have to share everything you would share with your therapist or something like that. But I think it should be something where you feel comfortable saying, like, as a human being, I am also feeling this way, particularly right now. I'm having a tough time, whatever. And so, it's going to be harder for me to reply to your emails, and it's going to be hard. I was on leave anyway, but there was someone at my job who actually said, if she's sick, why doesn't she just quit the job?
And those people, there's a special place in hell for them.
That's how I was livid.
So sorry.
Like, I was bedridden when I heard that. And I just remember being like, getting a little energy, being like, oh, that anger just gave me a little energy. Because I was like, they have no idea that I'm at the worst place in my life right now. Like, I didn't know what the sickness was. I thought I would never get better. I looked online once I did get diagnosed, and it said 25% of people with POTS are unable to work. And I am a very nerdy teacher who wanted to go back to work immediately. I loved my job. And so the thought of not being able to work scared me more than I can even say. And so, like, just knowing, there were people at my work who were absolutely supportive, 100%. It was, it's just sometimes when you hear that one comment, you're like, wait a minute. And so I think that is why it's important that the days get called mental health days, because I think it'll lessen the stigma. Because at my high school, in my county, for example, students have pushed for this. It's a beautiful thing. They want specific days that can be called mental health days. And some of the older people in the county will just be like, well, just use your sick leave, use your sick days as a student. And I think they're saying, like, well, no, this is different.
Like, if I'm sick, I'm I'm like, I have the flu or something like that. Like, we can't group these two together because they're not one and the same.
Mhm.
And the longer we do that, the less progress we're going to make.
Right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Wow. So what is that? What was that process like? First off, let's go back to I'm not even going to butcher it. Pods.
It's POTS. Yeah,
Pots.
it's okay. Pots.
Gotcha. Pots. Yeah. How did that happen? Where did that come from?
So I was walking one day and I was walking with my mom, and I just was like, oh my gosh, my heart is beating so fast. Like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh, I must have a virus, right? Or whatever. And then I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I felt I had brain fog, like my brain wasn't working properly.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize, these are all symptoms of POTS. But basically from then on, I was like laying in bed because every time I got out of bed, I felt like I was going to pass out.
Mm.
And it makes complete sense that I have POTS because I also have a chronic illness called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome,
Okay.
which is, for me, mostly just causes like pain in my shoulder, right?
Gotcha.
So that wasn't like limiting my life. But then when POTS, normally you have both. If you have Ehlers-Danlos, you have POTS, which I didn't really think about until I got that diagnosis. And so then once I realized that this is what I have, I was like, I have to change so many things about my life now. I have to grieve the life that I thought I could have had.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to accept my new life and take steps to make my new life what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And so for that, luckily, like POTS isn't going to kill me, but it's like you need to drink a ton of water. You need to increase your salt by a lot. You need to be drinking sports drinks all day long. If you feel faint, you need to lie down. And for me, it just decreased my energy so much. And as a teacher, I'd be in the school, and by 7th period, I'd be like, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm going to sit at my desk. And if you have questions, you can come to me. Because normally for all my classes, I walk around the room and work with groups of students on what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's very interactive. And so 7th period, I'd be like, okay, this group, come to me now,
Yeah.
I couldn't. I'd be like, I'm too faint. Or it might mean that I have to eat every like 2 hours to try to just like keep up my energy, etc. So it might mean I'm awkwardly eating during announcements. Like I'm eating a sandwich at 9:30 in the morning, and the kids are like, "You good, Miss Myren?" And I'm like, "I'm all good. Like I'm taking care of myself." You know what I mean? And I had to learn not to be embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
And being an invisible illness, which so many people have, so many people don't understand. Well, you could walk yesterday. Why can't you do it today? Or you know what I mean? Or you did such a great job on this like 2 weeks ago. Why today are you complaining about your sickness? And it's like, well, it's invisible, so you don't know that I actually have been feeling bad for, weeks or whatever. But also, I just think it's so important for people in this community who have these invisible illnesses to get the respect that they deserve from people who maybe don't understand what they're going through. And so that's kind of something I've been trying to do in my job, is just like educate people about like, this is what it looks like for me. And like, I'm okay, but this is what it looks like. This is the reality of the situation. And it was actually really special this year. I had a student with POTS, and she would be like, "You're not doing enough to take care of yourself." And I just like, it was so sweet. And she was so comfortable with the fact that she had this invisible illness. So she would come into class and she'd have an IV treatment, like just on her. Like she had the whole pole up. She was sitting in the front row.
Owning it.
She's owning it 100%. And I feel like I was like, you know what? I love to teach because it always shows like our future is going to be better. Like these young people are good. And so it was so exciting to be like, wait, now I can say, I've been there. I understand that. Yeah. And so it's just like, helping me. I mean, she helped me so much just by what she showed me, but then I hope to help her just by being a person who says like, I completely understand what you're going through, you know? And so it's really been nice to just like advocate for the community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because this is the first time I've heard of that. I've never, I've never heard of that. The brain fog and the dizziness has been happening to me. But my doctor, I won't say she chalked it up, but she kind of attached it to like low iron anemia. So I've been like taking iron pills and just trying to do what I can to make myself feel better, and I think that's all we can do. And it's also great to have that support system and those people that you can rely on and relate to, with them in their journeys, and you help them on their journeys and they help you on yours.
Yeah, and I hope you find that for, whatever you're going through, if it is like anemia or if it is something else, I hope you find other people who are going through that make you feel like, okay, everybody's going through something. And I think what's so frustrating about brain fog, especially, is think about how we were 5 years ago. Both of us are like, we're workaholics, we're this, or that. And so if I have brain fog, I can't have brain fog. And, for me, I would be mad at myself. Like, I caused it. Of course I didn't cause it. But now I'm like, I can't perform at this super, super high level because I have, this illness. And it was really eye-opening. I mean, it took me a while. It didn't happen
I can imagine.
overnight. Yeah. But it took me a while until I kind of said, okay, I can't do XYZ, but I can do so many things that I want to do. And I have to like change my mindset around it. And I also just have to be like completely open about the situation of like, I get brain fog sometimes. I tell my students that, and all they've ever been is understanding. All they've ever been is kind and, Miss Myren, do you need me to get you a Gatorade, this or that, right? Or like, I just have to sit down for a second, but I'll be back up, and they're like, no worries. Like, and so I think it's so helpful when you kind of own your illness too.
Yeah. And you can lean into it and be shocked and surprised at the support that you can get, and they lean you back up. It's just a different feeling, it's a different level of just being okay.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
My acceptance piece that I think about a lot is like, okay, when you get thrown a curveball, you can't necessarily avoid it. Like, curve with the curveball. Like, you have to know that acceptance is going to take you further than resistance is going to take you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to keep in mind every single day.
Yeah, every day is not that easy.
No, absolutely not. I really, and I hope everyone knows that too, is like, I'm over here speaking on how I try to stay positive, but it doesn't mean I'm not having bad days. Absolutely. I think it's a journey for everyone.
Absolutely. And it's a journey that it's okay to be on. And it's okay to know that you're going to have bad days. You might have bad weeks. And this is the first time that I'm even bringing it up, but this changes every episode, right? So everyone, I change it. So it's just so wild that we're talking about what we're talking about, and it says one breath at a time.
And like, I noticed and I thought, oh, maybe that's like the mantra, of you. But the fact that you said it changes every time, I mean, that's crazy, because that really is what we've been talking about. And just the fact that, when you do take it one breath at a time and you accept where you are, then it's so much easier to make it to that next breath.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That was beautiful. That was beautifully put. That was good. How can we support you? Where can we find you on social media? And how can we book you for helping us get organized? Organized.
No, organized is the new.
Organized.
I'm changing it. My website is going to change. Everything's going to change because I like that way better. It's okay. You should hear the amount of times I say words wrong to students and they're like calling me out. I'm like, I don't know. My brain fog. It's your brain fog.
My brain fog.
It's your brain fog. Okay. That's it.
Brain fog.
Okay. Well, I'm on Instagram, Myren_education, and Myren is MYREN. And I also have a website, same name, MyrenEducation.com. And if same name for my email address, MyrenEducation@gmail.com. And that's really the easiest way to book me because I have a lot of flexibility this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so if anyone's looking for tutoring for students or kind of coaching for adults, that's the way that they can reach out to me. And I would love meeting new people. So that would be so great.
Perfect. Do you have anything that you want the listeners to know?
I want the listeners to know that perseverance doesn't look like a straight line up. That perseverance is taking it day by day and allowing it to go up and down, but knowing that overall you're going to keep going because you want to keep going for yourself and for what you want in life. And so I think perseverance can often be framed as something that we just have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of it's more a choice.
Yeah. I like that a lot. One more question, then I'll let you get out of here.
No worries.
What is your definition of resilience?
Yes. I think my definition of resilience is that you know you will be okay. And so you get up and keep going when you can, and you take breaks when you need it. And you don't beat yourself up for being a human being and experiencing hard things out of your control, and just being the person who accepts that to have the life they want, they just have to keep going.
To be the person who accepts that to have the life that you want, you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
That is resilience in action.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Amber, thank you so very much for spending some time with us today, and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and just your perspective on, life. Really appreciate it.
So great to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And I want you to remember one thing: resilience in action will always lead to a greater human experience.